Somewhere far beyond the reaches of known space, where stars burned cold and silence stretched endlessly, a fleet of alien ships drifted cautiously through the void. These were the Valens, a peaceful species with shimmering silver vessels that glowed faintly under the dim light of distant suns. They had come to this uncharted region, seeking knowledge, drawn by whispers of ancient ruins buried deep within an asteroid belt. But what they found instead was something far more dangerous than any relic. They found themselves surrounded. It started subtly at first, a flicker on their sensors here, a shadow moving across their screens there. At first, the Valens thought it might be interference from the strange energy fields emanating from the asteroids. But soon those shadows solidified into shapes, sharp, angular, and menacing. One by one, the dozens of hunter ships appeared out of nowhere, encircling the Valen fleet like predators closing in on prey. Each ship bristled with weapons, its surface jagged and dark as if designed to intimidate before firing a single shot. Panic spread quickly among the Valon crew. Their leader, a tall, slender being with glowing blue eyes, tried to maintain calm but struggled against the rising tide of fear. "We must communicate," the leader said, voice trembling slightly despite their best efforts. "Perhaps they do not mean us harm." But attempts at communication yielded nothing. The hunters did not respond to hails or signals. Instead, they tightened their grip, forming a perfect sphere around the Velan fleet. Every attempt to break free ended in failure. Every probe sent toward the hunters was destroyed without warning. It became clear that escape was impossible, at least not without help. And who would dare venture into such a deadly trap? Hours passed, each one heavier than the last. Inside the Valan ships, tension hung thick in the air. Crew members whispered nervously about the hunter's reputation. Across the galaxy, these beings were feared above all others. Ruthless and efficient, they hunted weaker species for sport, leaving behind only debris and echoes of destruction. No one survived an encounter with them, or so the stories went. Then, just when hope seemed lost, something extraordinary happened. From the edge of the asteroid field, a small, battered ship emerged. It was tiny compared to the massive hunter vessels, almost laughably insignificant. Its hull was scarred with burns and dents, evidence of battles fought long ago. Yet, despite its ragged appearance, the ship moved with purpose, slipping effortlessly between two hunter cruisers as though daring them to strike. For a moment, everything froze. Even the hunters paused, their systems scanning the newcomer with obvious confusion. Who was this? What kind of fool would willingly enter such a deadly situation? On board the Valan ships, stunned silence gave way to murmurs of disbelief. Was this some kind of trick? Or perhaps another predator looking to claim the spoils? Inside the mysterious ship, however, things were anything but chaotic. A lone figure sat at the controls, fingers flying over panels as they monitored the situation outside. This individual exuded calmness, their movements steady and deliberate. Whoever they were, they clearly knew what they were doing, and they weren't afraid. The hunters recovered quickly from their shock. With a burst of aggression, one of the larger ships fired a warning shot near the newcomer. The blast illuminated the darkness, sending a clear message: leave now or face annihilation. But the human ship didn't flinch. Instead, it responded with a series of quick maneuvers, dodging incoming fire with ease. Then, without warning, it deployed a series of decoys, small drones that scattered in all directions, confusing the hunters' targeting systems. Chaos erupted among the hunter fleet. For the first time since surrounding the Valens, they found themselves struggling to maintain control. Their once perfect formation began to falter as they scrambled to deal with this unexpected threat. Meanwhile, on board the Velan ships, hope flickered back to life. Could this stranger truly turn the tide? As the minutes ticked by, it became clear that the human wasn't just fighting blindly. Every move was calculated, every action precise. They weren't aiming to destroy the hunters outright. Instead, they focused on disabling key systems, crippling the enemy's ability to coordinate. It was a strategy born of experience, of knowing how to survive in situations where survival seemed impossible. By the time the hunters realized what was happening, it was too late. Several of their ships had been neutralized, their engines dead and weapons offline. Others retreated to regroup, unwilling to risk further losses. In the sudden lull that followed, the Valans stared in awe at the battered little ship that had changed everything. Who was this mysterious savior, and why had they chosen to intervene? Unbeknownst to the Valans, the answer lay not in grand heroics, but in simple humanity. The figure inside the ship had seen countless conflicts, faced unimaginable odds, and emerged victorious not through brute force, but through ingenuity and determination. To them, this was just another day in the endless expanse of space, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, courage could shine through. And so, as the hunters pulled back and the immediate danger subsided, the stage was set for a meeting that would change both species forever. Little did the Valans know, their encounter with this lone human would spark a chain reaction of events that would ripple across the galaxy and perhaps even alter the course of history itself. The battered human ship continued to weave through the chaos like a ghost, slipping between blasts of energy and clouds of debris. When on board the Valan vessels, the crew watched in stunned silence as this stranger, this tiny speck of defiance, held its ground against overwhelming odds. The hunters' attacks grew more frantic, their frustration evident in every missed shot and miscalculated maneuver. Yet no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't land a single blow on the nimble craft. Inside the human ship, the lone figure remained focused, their hands steady on the controls. They weren't reckless or impulsive. Every move was deliberate, calculated to exploit the hunter's weaknesses. Decades of experience had taught them that survival wasn't about brute strength. It was about thinking faster, moving smarter, and staying one step ahead. And right now, they were doing just that. The hunters began to falter, or their once perfect coordination unraveled as confusion spread through their ranks. Some ships broke formation entirely, chasing after the decoys that darted unpredictably across the battlefield. Others fired blindly, wasting precious ammunition on empty space. For beings who prided themselves on precision and dominance, this sudden loss of control was infuriating and terrifying. On board the Valan ships, hope started to bloom again. At first it was cautious, fragile even. But as the minutes ticked by and the hunters' advantage dwindled, that hope grew stronger. The Valans exchanged glances, their glowing eyes reflecting a mixture of awe and disbelief. Who was this mysterious savior? Why would someone risk everything for strangers in a distant corner of the galaxy? Then something unexpected happened. The human ship stopped dodging and turned directly toward one of the larger hunter vessels. For a moment it seemed as though the stranger had made a fatal mistake. The hunters seized the opportunity, unleashing a barrage of fire at the stationary target. But instead of exploding, the human ship unleashed its own weapon, a pulse of energy so intense it lit up the surrounding space like a second sun. The blast didn't destroy the hunter ship outright. Instead, it disabled its engines and weapon systems, leaving it adrift and powerless. The other hunters hesitated, unsure whether to press their attack or retreat. In that brief moment of indecision, the human struck again, targeting another ship with the same precision. One by one, the hunters' forces began to crumble. The Valens watched in amazement as the tide of the battle shifted. It wasn't just the human skill that impressed them, it was their restraint. This stranger could have obliterated the hunters entirely, yet they chose not to. Instead, they focused on neutralizing threats without causing unnecessary destruction. To the Valens, this approach was both baffling and inspiring. In their culture, conflict was rare, and violence was almost unheard of. Seeing someone wield such power with care and purpose left a deep impression on them. As the last of the hunter ships retreated into the void, an uneasy silence settled over the battlefield. The Valen fleet remained on high alert, unsure what to expect next. Would the human turn on them now that the immediate danger had passed? Or would they simply vanish back into the stars, leaving behind only questions? But the human didn't leave. Instead, their ship drifted closer to the Valon flagship, coming to a stop just within communication range. For several tense moments, nothing happened. Then finally a signal came through. Not words, but images. Scenes of Earth flashed across the Valon screens. Vast oceans, towering mountains, bustling cities filled with life. There were also glimpses of war-torn landscapes, reminders of humanity's struggles and resilience. The message was clear. This stranger represented a species that had faced countless challenges and emerged stronger because of them. Curiosity overtook fear, and the Valens responded in kind. They sent images of their own world, a lush, vibrant planet teeming with plant life and gentle creatures. Unlike Earth, it was a place untouched by conflict, where harmony reigned supreme. The exchange felt almost intimate, and as if two vastly different cultures were reaching out to understand each other for the first time. Eventually, the human broke the silence with a voice transmission. It was soft and calm, carrying a tone of reassurance rather than authority. "You're safe now," the voice said simply. "They won't come back." Though the Valens didn't fully understand the language, the meaning was unmistakable. Gratitude washed over them, and they responded with gestures of thanks, soft hums and rhythmic pulses of light that filled the airwaves. For the first time since being ambushed, the Valens allowed themselves to relax. Over the next few hours, the human remained nearby, keeping watch while the Valens assessed the damage to their fleet. Repairs were slow but steady, and morale improved with each passing minute. Crew members gathered around viewports, marveling at the sight of the battered little ship that had saved them all. Some even speculated about the identity of their rescuer. Was this person part of a larger organization? Or were they truly alone, wandering the stars with nothing but their wits and courage to guide them. Despite their curiosity, the Valans respected the humans' privacy. They didn't press for answers or demand explanations. Instead, they focused on preparing to leave this dangerous region of space before the hunters returned. With the humans' help, they plotted a course through the asteroid field, using the strangers' knowledge of the area to avoid potential hazards. As the Valan fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, the humans sent one final transmission. This time, it included coordinates, directions to a safe zone where the Valans could regroup and recover. There was no request for payment, no demand for allegiance, just a simple act of kindness from one traveler to another. When the Valans finally departed, leaving the battered human ship behind, a profound sense of gratitude lingered among them. They didn't know much about this stranger, but one thing was certain. Humanity had earned their respect, and though their paths might never cross again, the memory of this encounter would stay with the Valans forever. Little did either side realize, however, that this was only the beginning. The bond forged in the heat of battle would soon lead to discoveries neither species could have anticipated, and challenges that would test their newfound alliance in ways they couldn't yet imagine. The Valans were safe for now. The hunter ships had retreated, were their once imposing fleet reduced to scattered remnants fleeing into the void. But the Valans knew better than to celebrate just yet. Space was vast and unpredictable, and danger could return at any moment. Still, there was no denying the debt they owed to the mysterious human who had turned the tide of battle in their favor. Without this stranger, they would have been destroyed, or worse, captured and subjected to whatever cruel fate the hunters had planned. As repairs continued aboard the Valan ships, curiosity about their savior grew stronger. Who was this person? How had they managed to outsmart an entire fleet of ruthless predators? And why had they chosen to intervene on behalf of a species they'd never met before? These questions buzzed through the minds of the Valan crew, but they didn't press for answers. Instead, they observed quietly, watching as the battered human ship remained nearby, keeping watch over them like a silent guardian. It wasn't long before the human made contact again. This time, the transmission came not as images or gestures, but as a story, a tale told through carefully chosen visuals and sounds that transcended language barriers. The Valans gathered around their screens, captivated by what they saw. The story began with Earth, a blue-green jewel suspended in the darkness of space. At first glance, it seemed peaceful, almost idyllic. But as the narrative unfolded, cracks began to show. Scenes of war flashed across the screen, armies clashing, cities burning, skies choked with smoke. It was a grim reminder of humanity's darker instincts, a testament to the violence that had once defined their world. Yet, even in those moments of destruction, there was hope. The visuals shifted, showing people working together to rebuild what had been lost. Communities came together, sharing resources and knowledge to create something stronger than before. Innovations followed, new technologies born from necessity, designed to protect and preserve rather than destroy. Slowly but surely, humanity began to change. They learned to adapt, to survive, and most importantly, to unite when faced with overwhelming odds. The Valans watched in awe as the story progressed. For a species that valued peace above all else, These glimpses into humanity's past were both shocking and inspiring. They saw pain and suffering, yes, but they also saw resilience. They saw courage. They saw a species determined to rise above its flaws, no matter how difficult the journey might be. Then came the part that truly amazed them: humanity's technological leap. The visual shifted again, showcasing inventions that defied imagination. Ships capable of traveling faster than light, weapons that could disable entire fleets without causing harm, shields strong enough to withstand the harshest environments in the galaxy. Each innovation was presented not as a boast, but as proof of humanity's ability to evolve under pressure. For the Valans, this revelation was staggering. Their own technology, while advanced, paled in comparison to what they were seeing. They realized then why the human had been able to hold their own against the hunters. It wasn't just skill or strategy, it was raw power, tempered by wisdom and restraint. But the story didn't end there. As the final images flickered across the screen, the human added one last piece to the puzzle: a glimpse of Earth today. Gone were the scars of war. In their place stood thriving ecosystems and vibrant cultures. Humanity had found balance, not perfection, but harmony between progress and preservation. It was a message meant to reassure the Valans. Despite their fearsome reputation, humans were not conquerors. They were survivors, driven by a desire to protect rather than dominate. When the transmission ended, silence filled the Valan ships. Crew members exchanged glances, their glowing eyes reflecting a mixture of admiration and introspection. They had always believed themselves to be the pinnacle of peaceful coexistence, but now they wondered if they had much to learn from this stranger. Humanity's story was a lesson in perseverance, in finding strength through unity and innovation. It challenged everything the Valans thought they knew about survival. Over the next few hours, the humans stayed close, offering guidance as the Valans plotted their escape route. They shared tips on navigating the treacherous asteroid field, pointing out hidden dangers and shortcuts that only someone with intimate knowledge of the area would know. The Valans listened intently, absorbing every word like students eager to learn from a master. During this time, the human also revealed another surprising detail. They weren't part of any official organization or military force. They were simply an explorer, a wanderer charting uncharted regions of space. Their decision to intervene hadn't been motivated by duty or obligation. It had been instinctive, a reflex born from years of facing similar threats. This admission struck a chord with the Valans. To them, it underscored the true nature of humanity's strength. It wasn't about numbers or resources. It was about individuals willing to step up when others couldn't. It was about taking risks, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. And perhaps most importantly, it was about choosing compassion over cruelty, even in the face of hostility. By the time the Valans were ready to leave, their perspective had shifted entirely. They no longer saw the human as merely a savior. They saw them as a symbol of possibility. If humanity could overcome its own struggles and emerge stronger, then maybe the Valans could do the same. Maybe they didn't have to remain passive observers in a dangerous universe. Maybe they could find ways to adapt, to grow, to protect themselves without sacrificing their values. As the Valan fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, the humans sent one final message. It was brief but powerful. "You're stronger than you think." Those 6 simple words carried more weight than any weapon ever could. They reminded the Valons of their potential, of the untapped strength lying dormant within their peaceful society. With a collective hum of gratitude, the Valons activated their engines and disappeared into the stars. Behind them, the human ship lingered for a moment longer, watching until the last trace of their allies vanished from sight. Then, with a quiet burst of energy, it too slipped away, vanishing into the endless expanse of space. Though their paths had diverged, the bond forged in the heat of battle remained strong. In the Valans carried the memory of their encounter with the human deep in their hearts, drawing inspiration from it whenever doubt crept in. And somewhere out there, among the stars, the human continued their solitary journey, leaving behind ripples of change that would echo far beyond this single encounter. Little did either side realize, however, that their meeting was destined to shape events far greater than they could imagine. In the vastness of space, connections like theirs were rare, but when they happened, they had the power to alter destinies. The Valon fleet was finally on the move, their engines humming softly as they navigated the treacherous asteroid field under the guidance of their mysterious human ally. The battered little ship remained close by, its presence a constant reassurance against the lingering threat of the hunter's return. Though the immediate danger had passed, no one aboard the Valon vessels dared to relax completely. Space was unpredictable, and the hunters were known for their tenacity. If they regrouped and returned, the Valons would need every advantage they could get, and that meant staying near the human who had already proven themselves capable of turning the tide. As the hours ticked by, an unspoken bond began to form between the two species. It wasn't just gratitude that tied them together, it was mutual respect. The Valons admired the humans' ingenuity, courage, and restraint, while the humans seemed genuinely intrigued by the Valons' peaceful nature and deep connection to harmony. Despite their differences, they shared a common goal: survival in a universe that often felt hostile and unforgiving. Communication between the two parties became more frequent, though still limited by language barriers. The human relied heavily on visuals and gestures to convey ideas, while the Valons responded with soft hums and rhythmic pulses of light. These exchanges might have seemed rudimentary to outsiders, but to those involved they carried profound meaning. Each interaction brought new understanding, bridging the gap between two vastly different cultures. One evening, or what passed for evening in the timeless expanse of space, the human transmitted another message. This time, it wasn't a story or a set of coordinates. Instead, it was a question posed through carefully chosen images. Why were you here? What brought you to this dangerous place? The Valons hesitated before responding. Their mission had been one of exploration, driven by curiosity about the ancient ruins buried within the asteroid field. But now, faced with the reality of how perilous their journey had become, they questioned whether their quest for knowledge had been worth the risk. Still, they answered honestly, sending back images of crumbling structures and strange artifacts. They explained through symbols and gestures that these ruins held secrets from a long-lost civilization, ones that might hold answers to questions about life, existence, and the cosmos itself. To their surprise, the human responded with enthusiasm. More transmissions followed, showing glimpses of humanity's own archaeological endeavors. Ancient temples unearthed, forgotten cities rediscovered, and relics studied to unlock the mysteries of the past. The Valans realized then that humans, too, valued knowledge above all else. Though their methods were different, their motivations were strikingly similar. Encouraged by this shared passion, the Valans invited the human to join them in exploring the ruins once they reached safety. At first, the human hesitated. Their solitary nature suggested a preference for independence, and they likely had their own missions to complete. But after a moment of consideration, they agreed, signaling their acceptance with a single pulse of light. This decision marked the beginning of an unlikely alliance. Together, the Valans and the human devised a plan to escape the region entirely before attempting any further exploration. The asteroid field was too dangerous to linger in, especially with the hunters potentially regrouping nearby. Using the humans' knowledge of the area and the Valans' advanced scanning technology, they identified a narrow corridor that would allow them to slip away undetected. The journey through the corridor was tense but successful. The Valan ships moved in formation, shielded by the human vessel, which took point to scout for potential threats. Every twist and turn was executed with precision, a testament to the growing trust between the two groups. When they finally emerged on the other side, the relief was palpable. They had made it to safer territory, a remote sector of space where the hunters were unlikely to follow. Once there, the Valans extended an invitation for the human to dock with their flagship. It was a gesture of gratitude, but also an opportunity to learn more about each other. The human accepted, guiding their battered ship into the docking bay with practiced ease. When the airlock opened, the figure stepped out cautiously, their movements deliberate and calm. For the first time, the Valans saw their savior up close, not as a distant hero, but as a living, breathing individual. Though physically different from the Valans, the human radiated a quiet strength that commanded respect. Their eyes, sharp and observant, scanned the surroundings with a mix of curiosity and caution. They wore a simple suit patched together from years of use, its surface scarred with signs of countless battles survived. Yet despite their rugged appearance, there was a kindness in their demeanor that put the Valans at ease. Over the next few days, the two species worked closely together, sharing stories, insights, and strategies. The Valans learned more about humanity's history, their struggles, triumphs, and unwavering determination to adapt and survive. In turn, the human gained a deeper appreciation for the Valans' way of life, their commitment to peace, and their reverence for the natural world. These exchanges sparked something unexpected: inspiration. The Valans began to see their own culture in a new light. They realized that while peace was precious, it couldn't exist without strength. Humanity's example showed them that true harmony came not from avoiding conflict altogether, but from being prepared to face it when necessary. Armed with this newfound perspective, they vowed to incorporate elements of humanity's resilience into their society. For the human, the experience was equally transformative. Traveling alone across the stars could be isolating, but connecting with the Valans reminded them of the importance of community. even if that community existed light years away. The warmth and gratitude expressed by the Velans touched something deep within them, reigniting a sense of purpose that had dimmed over years of solitude. By the time the Velans announced their intention to resume their mission to the ruins, the human had decided to stay with them a little longer. Together they approached the ancient site with a renewed sense of purpose. The ruins, partially buried beneath layers of rock and dust, loomed before them like silent witnesses to eons gone by. As the Velans deployed their excavation equipment, the human assisted, offering tools and techniques honed from years of exploration. What they discovered surpassed all expectations. Hidden within the ruins were artifacts unlike anything either species had ever seen, devices that pulsed with energy, inscriptions that glowed faintly, and structures that defied conventional physics. Each discovery raised more questions than answers, fueling their shared curiosity and driving them to dig deeper. Through it all, the bond between the Velans and the human continued to strengthen. They weren't just allies anymore. They were partners, united by a common goal and a mutual desire to understand the universe around them. And though their time together would eventually come to an end, the impact of their alliance would resonate far beyond this single encounter. Little did they realize, however, that their discoveries in the ruins would lead to revelations far greater than either species could have anticipated. The secrets hidden within the ancient structures hinted at truths that could reshape the galaxy, and perhaps even challenge the very fabric of reality itself. The ancient ruins held secrets that neither the Velans nor the human could have anticipated. As they delved deeper into the labyrinthine structures, each discovery brought them closer to understanding the civilization that had once thrived there. The artifacts they uncovered were unlike anything in the known galaxy, devices that hummed with an energy that seemed almost alive. Inscriptions that shifted and changed when touched, and chambers filled with holographic projections depicting scenes from a time long forgotten. At first, deciphering these relics felt like trying to solve a puzzle without all the pieces. But as the Velans and the human worked side by side, their combined knowledge began to unlock fragments of the truth. The civilization that had built this place was far older than either species had imagined, predating even the earliest records of galactic history. What's more, it appeared to have been highly advanced, not just technologically, but philosophically. Their writings spoke of unity across species, of transcending differences to achieve harmony on a universal scale. It was a vision so ambitious, so idealistic, that it left both the Velans and the human awestruck. Yet, for all its beauty, the story of this ancient civilization was also tinged with tragedy. The holograms revealed glimpses of their downfall, a cataclysmic event that had wiped them out, leaving only echoes behind. The cause of their destruction wasn't entirely clear, but one thing became evident. They had underestimated the dangers lurking beyond their borders. Whether it was internal strife or external threats, their failure to adapt ultimately led to their demise. This revelation struck a chord with both groups. For the Velans, it served as a sobering reminder of the fragility of peace. They had always believed that avoiding conflict was enough to ensure survival, but now they saw that true security required vigilance and preparation. For the human, it reinforced lessons they had learned through centuries of hardship. That progress came not from ignoring challenges, but from facing them head-on. Despite the somber undertones, the discoveries also inspired hope. The ancient civilization's ideals of unity and cooperation resonated deeply with both species. If such a vision had been possible once, perhaps it could be realized again, in their own time, in their own way. This shared dream became the foundation of a new partnership between the Valons and the human, one rooted not just in mutual aid, but in a collective desire to build something greater than themselves. As they continued their exploration, the bond between them grew stronger. The Valens marveled at the human's resourcefulness, while the human found solace in the Valen's unwavering optimism. Together, they pieced together clues that painted a clearer picture of the ruins' purpose. It seemed the site wasn't merely a repository of knowledge. It was a beacon, a design to guide other civilizations toward enlightenment. Its creators had hoped to leave behind a legacy that would inspire future generations to strive for peace and understanding. With this realization, the Valens made a bold decision. They would preserve the ruins, ensuring that its message endured for others to find. But they wouldn't stop there. Drawing inspiration from humanity's example, they resolved to share what they had learned with their own people, and eventually with the wider galaxy. The encounter with the human had awakened something within them, a determination to evolve, to become not just peaceful observers, but active participants in shaping the future. For the human, the experience was equally transformative. Traveling alone across the stars had taught them resilience, but it had also fostered a sense of isolation. Working alongside the Valens reminded them of the power of connection, of how much could be achieved when individuals came together for a common cause. Though they knew their journey would eventually lead them back into the vast unknown, they carried with them a renewed sense of purpose, a belief that even small actions could ripple outward, creating change far beyond what any one person might accomplish alone. When the time came to part ways, neither side wanted to say goodbye. The Valans extended an open invitation for the human to return whenever they wished, promising to honor the alliance they had forged. In turn, the human assured them that their paths would cross again, whether by chance or design. As the battered ship prepared to depart, the Valens gathered to watch, were their glowing eyes reflecting a mixture of gratitude and admiration. The human lingered for a moment longer, hovering near the Valen fleet as if reluctant to leave. Then with a final burst of energy, they vanished into the stars, disappearing into the endless expanse of space. Behind them, the Valens stood in silence, their hearts full of hope and determination. They knew their lives had been forever changed by this encounter, and they vowed to carry its lessons forward. Back on Earth, news of the incident spread quietly among top officials. While the rest of the galaxy remained unaware of the event, humanity gained newfound respect from those who witnessed their actions. The Valans, in particular, became vocal advocates for humans, sharing stories of their courage and ingenuity with anyone willing to listen. These tales sparked curiosity about Earth, leading to tentative overtures of diplomacy that would lay the groundwork for future alliances. Meanwhile, the human continued their solitary journey, drifting from one corner of the galaxy to another. Yet they were no longer alone, not truly. The memory of the Valens stayed with them, a reminder of the connections they had forged and the impact they had made. And though they didn't know it yet, their actions had set something extraordinary in motion. Across the stars, whispers of their bravery began to spread, inspiring others to reach out, to explore, and to dream of a better future. In the end, the legacy of that fateful encounter extended far beyond the ruins or the battle that had brought the two species together. It was a testament to the power of courage, compassion, and collaboration, a reminder that even in the darkest corners of the universe, light could shine through. And as both the Veilans and the human moved forward, carrying the lessons of their shared journey with them, they proved that the smallest acts of kindness could spark changes capable of altering the course of history itself.